Hello and welcome to a look at the Beverly Hills Cop for the Amiga, a game that was released by Tynesoft. As you can likely imagine, this game is a movie tie-in game, very loosely based around the film by the same name. I'm going to focus mainly on the game first and foremost, and then cover the movie part of the things later on in the video. You take control of Axel Foley, a smart ass cop who's been sent out to investigate a warehouse because there are rumors that weapons are being loaded onto trucks. And of course, that is a naughty, nasty thing to do. So Axel goes out and, on arrival, finds that there's an awful lot of bad guys who just like him being nosy. So they try very hard to kill him. And of course, the best way to deal with that is to pull out your automatic Colt 45, which is the weapon of choice for Axel Foley, and start shooting back. The game contains 4 different levels, each playing in 4 different ways, and in the first level, as you can see from the graphics currently, Axel is walking from left to right with the single aim of getting to the rightmost side of the game field and then move on to the next level while trying to avoid being shot and blown up and whatever else you might imagine him being in the process. This particular level is incredibly infuriating because of multiple things. First and foremost, it contains 2 of my absolutely most noticeable pet peeves, which are infinitely respawning enemies. It doesn't belong in games, in my opinion, unless the game involves grinding that requires you to kill multiple enemies in order to improve your character or whatever else you're doing. And then, of course, it also contains off-screen shooting, which is something I find incredibly unwelcome in any game of any type. But that's just part of the problem. The biggest problem is the fact that the controls are trying to be funky. You can shoot straight ahead, you can kneel and shoot, and you can shoot upwards at an angle, actually multiple angles. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that you tend to fight the controls more so with the controls assisting you. And that makes it an incredibly obnoxious experience because of the fact that if you are in a ready to shoot position, you have to go back to a neutral position in order to duck. Because if you try to pull down on the joystick, Axel is just going to angle his gun downwards, which is incredibly useful when you are trying to avoid getting shot at by someone actually shooting at you. I can understand why the attempt of making some fancy control thing was made, but I can also safely say that the execution of it was not particularly good. And if the controls had been sharpened up alone, that would possibly make this level somewhat more enjoyable, but unfortunately, it isn't. Now, I'm not going to wait for the next level's graphics to show, so I'm just going to explain what's going on the second level. Because, of course, once reaching the end of the first level, Axel discovers that certain trucks has been loaded with weapons, and it's time to give chase. Being on a road, of course, you have to be mindful of other road users and the trucks you are chasing, because the first one is quite passive, but any subsequent ones you have to stop, and you have to stop at 3. We'll try to drop boxes in the way of your car, and Axel's car is incredibly flimsy because if he touches anything that resembles a solid object, whether it's a cardboard box or not, his car will blow up because, yeah, that makes sense. The way to stop the trucks, of course, is to shoot at them, because that makes perfect sense, and once Axel is close enough to one of the trucks, which are very unique looking, they are incredibly hard to miss, actually. It's time to put some bullets into them and cause them to blow up, and once 3 are blown up, you will be given the option to replay the level, and if you say yes to that, you will start all over again on that level. So make sure to say no so you can actually move on. I like the idea of having the ability to replay the level, but at the end of a level, perhaps not. The driving section itself is a 3D kind of thing where you have to chase the vans in question. And the problem with the 3D section thing is the fact that the frame rate is fine once you have other vehicles and other obstacles on the screen, but if you turn and have them off screen, the frame rate is going to increase tenfold, meaning that it gives the control of the car a feel very equivalent to racing with Formula 1 slick tires on pure ice while being comatose drunk. You can imagine that the controls are slightly slippery, to say the least. That kind of controls added to the fact that if you drive off-road, you will get a 9-second timer, and if that reaches 0, your car blows up. Axel needs a better car than what he's driving because it seems rather sensitive. It doesn't even like driving on grass. But of course, because of the controls being what they are, you find yourself going off-road from time to time, quite unintentionally. And of course, because fun being fun, like so many other driving games, if you get to a bend in the road which is blind, you're almost guaranteed to have an oncoming car in the opposite lane that you can't see coming, because, yeah. This is one of those areas where the game isn't actually bad, but it is nowhere near what you would consider to be remotely good. And it is a disappointment because, yeah, I will get back to that towards the end of this video. Once Axel has blown up the third van, he will question the driver of the said van and get the location of Mr. Big's mansion. So he decides it's time to storm Mr. Big's mansion and take him out. So you enter a level in which Axel has to navigate a maze of hedges and things like that to actually reach the mansion. And the gameplay in that particular section is somewhat clever because it feels like a top-down RPG-ish Operation Wolf, if that makes sense. The idea is sound, but the execution, unfortunately, isn't. And the controls of Axel is just as poor as they are in the driving sections, meaning that they feel incredibly slippery, and it just makes you want to scream at the game. The film Beverly Hills Cop, of course, featured Eddie Murphy, and that was likely the film that made his name a household one. His portrayal of Axel Foley is great. Axel Foley is a hip, smart-assy, loudmouth cop who bends the rules when it suits him. Something that drives the two couples in Beverly Hills absolutely bonkers, and much hilarity comes out of that. The film has glamour, high energy, high octane, action, humor, excitement, all the good things you would want from a film. But it's not something you can say about this game, unfortunately. The average review score of this title from the official press was 54%, and I have to admit I tend to agree. It's not an unplayable game, it's not a horrible game, but it is definitely not the game it could have been, should have been, and deserved to be. So on that note, I'm going to say thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.